Joachim Kroll is a name that evokes horror and disgust. He was a German murderer and cannibal whose story still haunts people's imaginations. Plunging into his life, we can highlight not only the criminal acts themselves, but also the context in which they took place. This is not just a story about a criminal, but also about how society can be powerless before the demons within it. Joachim Kroll was born on December 17, 1933 in a small town in Germany. He grew up in a simple family where strict parental authority reigned. Since childhood, Joachim showed signs of social isolation. Children at school often laughed at him, and this formed an inferiority complex in him. Having entered adulthood, he began to feel dissatisfaction with his fate. After graduating from school, Kroll worked in various positions, but did not stay anywhere for long. His social adjustment remained a problem, and over time he began to lose touch with reality more and more. According to information, he often dreamed about murders and even kept a diary in which he recorded his thoughts on this topic. In 1955, Joachim Kroll killed for the first time. His victim was a 19-year-old girl named Angela. Kroll lured her into his home, where he then committed a serious crime. This was his first experience. After the murder, he realized that he got some satisfaction from it, and began to look for new opportunities to fulfill his dark desires. Kroll quietly continued to live his life, not even feeling guilty for what he had done. As it turned out, his victims became more stable, and Kroll himself felt more and more addicted to this terrible experience. His first victim was not the last. By the early 1970s, Kroll already had several murders to his credit. His victims are usually young women or teenagers. Joachim believed that killing brought him power as well as the illusion of control over his life. If in the past he was powerless in the face of difficult circumstances, now, thanks to his crimes, he felt strong and significant. The murders became more and more brutal and sophisticated. Kroll even began to practice cannibalism, which was the logical conclusion of his mania. It wasn't just a murder anymore, he was trying to get the most out of it. Along with the murders, a certain system began to take shape. Kroll kept parts of the bodies of his victims, in order to enjoy them later. However, no one can hide forever. In 1976, after several women disappeared, investigations began. The police didn't know what they were looking for at first. At one of the stages, information about Kroll got into the mind in this regard, and this became a turning point. In August 1976, the police knew they had to charge him and began searching his home. And here the police discovered terrible finds: fragments of bodies, personal belongings of the victims. This was a shocking discovery. Kroll was apprehended, and with him his dark history was finally revealed. When Kroll's case went to trial, the public was shocked. The revealed details of his crimes caused horror and outrage. In 1977, he was found guilty of the murders. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, but the question of his mental state remained open. Is he mentally ill, or are his crimes simply the result of a pathological criminal flair? After his arrest, Kroll tried to claim that his murders were part of a mental disorder. However, despite numerous evaluations of his mental state, the court found that he was not innocent. The context of his crimes has become the object of research for many criminologists, because the story of Joachim Kroll is not just a story about a criminal. It is also an experience that can help to understand how such personalities are formed. The story about Joachim Kroll reflects not only the extremely cruel and ruthless actions of a person, but also the complexity of the behavior of a person who has been subjected to various social and psychological pressures. His story raises the question of how society can influence the development of criminal personalities, and how to respond to such cases. The moment when Kroll was finally stopped was decisive not only for his victims, but for society as a whole. His case will be remembered for a long time as one of the most terrible examples of crime in Germany. So let this story serve as a lesson about the dangers lurking in the darkness of the human soul, and the importance of paying attention to the symptoms of abuse before it becomes a reality. Joachim Kroll left behind heartache and shock for many. His story reminds us that violence can come from the most unexpected places, and that it is imperative to pay attention to the warning signs that may indicate the presence of psychological disorders in society.